There are 3 different ways to get into business for yourself. And what you're gonna get in this video is what are the 3, and then how do they stack up against each other? So that before you make the jump into becoming a business owner, you know which path is gonna work best for you. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Matt Pinkerina. I was once in your shoes, left a job, started my business, and now we help others start the exact same business across the entire United States. And we want to get this risk profile right for each of the ways that we can get into business, because we have families on the line and we're leaving a corporate career and a steady income, right? And so the way that this risk profile works is we'll list off the 3, and then we're going to rate them on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 being low, 5 being high. And that may work in favor of them sometimes and against the options sometimes. And there's going to be 3 different criteria we're going to measure against each of these. So the first criteria we're going to measure is going to be simply the cost. What does it take to get into the business? That's a very important element of risk. What is on the line? The next is going to be complexity, because complexity introduces more risk. Complexity takes skill to overcome. Complexity takes knowledge to know what to do before certain things happen. And then the third factor we're going to measure is uncertainty. Couldn't quite keep it with the clean C's for all of them, but you get the idea. Okay, so when it comes down to becoming a business owner, the most common thing that we all know about is what does it take to start a business, right? So let's dive in on that. When it comes to starting a business, depending on what exactly you're going to do, but you have a lot of flexibility because it's completely up to you, right? The cost is going to be most favorable to you, right? It's a very low number most of the time. If you want to spend extravagantly, you can. With our company, I started it with less than $3,000. It's now doing multi-millions across the United States. So you can transform your life with very little money whenever you decide to start a business from complete scratch. And so if I can encourage you, if you decide at the end of this video that starting a business from complete scratch is the route you want to go, be sure to be careful with your money. Just because you have $200,000 in the bank doesn't mean that you should go blow $200,000 day one of starting your business. Personally, I'm a fan of using wisdom and caring for your family as you build an incredible company. Now, when it comes to complexity with starting a business, this is actually going to be the highest level of difficulty. And this is because there are so many things that go into launching a business that aren't even a part of the business itself. There's so many taxes, regulations, different codes you need to meet, all these certifications you got to have. That's before you even get into actually getting someone to pay you some money. How are you going to actually get that to show up in your bank account? How are you going to accept credit cards? Yes, there's all kinds of things that you can pay for and sign up for and different services that do all these different pieces. Whenever we first launched our company, we were using about 20 different services and apps and things to piece it all together until one day we could start consolidating all those things. And that is a complex task even of itself. So again, if you do decide by the end of this video to go with the start, your complete scratch route, then keep it as simple as possible, but you're still going to run into all kinds of complexity that you're going to have to implement and figure out as you advance your business. The last main category is uncertainty. And well, you may guess it, because by starting a business from complete scratch, you've probably seen the statistics. This might be something that your spouse has quoted to you as, should you not really go into this? Should we really bet our money on something like this, right? They might say that. Uncertainty when it comes to starting from complete scratch is the highest. And this is just simply because you don't know what you don't know. And the only way to overcome uncertainty is to just not quit. Keep learning, keep at it, don't stop, and you will eventually figure it out. So as far as our total risk profile score here for starting a business from complete scratch, it's going to give us a score of 11. So maybe that's for you, maybe it's not. Let's look at the other options first before you decide. The next one is going to be whether you buy an existing business. Now, this may sound appealing, and it sometimes is. I've personally bought existing businesses before. I've started from scratch, bought existing, and I've even done option 3 as well. And so what I can tell you is no matter what you see on the internet, the cost is still going to be exceedingly high compared to all of the other options that you have, just because even if they do 100% owner financing, which literally means they just give you the business with the promise or the hope that you're going to pay them all that back one day plus some, right? It still is going to cost you enormously out of your pocket or out of your cash flow to buy that business. And in most cases, when it comes to getting a loan, like with the SBA, you're looking at putting down at least 20%. So if you want to buy a $1 million business and make all kinds of income, you're going to have to put down $200,000. And that doesn't even count putting in what's called operating capital. Because what happens whenever someone sells their business, they're going to pull all the cash out of that business. And all that cash is what's been used to pay payroll, to float bills, to just keep the company going in the meantime. It's like the business's checking account, right? And most companies have quite a large checking account. And so not only do you have to put in for that purchase price, you also need to put in that operating capital when you do take it over. And that's something they don't tell you when it comes to 100% owner financing. You still got to put money in there. Okay, so on from the cost of buying a business, let's jump into complexity. Complexity, it's going to be a little bit less complex than starting a business. The problem here is that you're stepping into someone else's systems. And if you get things wrong, if you make one little tweak wrong, then the whole thing can unwind. It can cost jobs. It can cost you cash flow. Most likely you won't crash the business into the ground, although I've seen many times where someone has bought an existing business and ran it straight into the ground. And that's simply because they don't respect the systems that are there. They don't learn how to handle what's going on. They don't understand the staffing dynamics and the team that's involved and all the different vendors and people that they work with. Something you can do if you're going to buy a business, you can potentially get this down to a 3. I'll do a down arrow to a 3. If the owner is willing to really work very closely with you, almost like a partner, to make sure the transition is smooth. I would just want to be sure if I was spending all of this money on this business that I get my arms completely around it and I understand the impacts of everything in it. And that naturally leads to the uncertainty. And uncertainty when you buy a business, we're going to put it at a 3. Now, it's not tremendously high, but there's definitely a strong level of uncertainty. And here is why. Why is that business for sale? No matter what they show you with the numbers, no matter what you find out, you can't dig in enough before you buy the business. There's certain things that you just are not going to be privy to until you are the actual legal owner of that company. And what happened to me with both businesses that I bought, and also what I've seen happen to others, is that time and time again, they found out some things after the sale that were probably the reasons the owner was really selling. Because think about it. If the owner had a perfectly good business, it was growing on its own, it had cash flow that was coming into them every single month, why would they be selling it, right? It's a private stock at that point. Well, there's reasons why they're selling it. Every single time. Even if they say, this one's great, I'm just going to go focus on something I really want to do, or I'm retiring, whatever the reason, there's a reason it's not a perfect business. And it's your job to try to find that out. But you only find out so much until you're actually in it. And that in itself loops back to the complexity. Are you business savvy enough to handle what's going to pop right up at you as soon as you walk through those doors the first day? Are you business savvy enough to turn a moving ship that already has momentum in a direction, or even one that might be sinking and you just don't know it? There is a significant level of uncertainty, but at least you have some cash flow coming in. Now, those things can impact that cash flow the day you walk through those doors, but you've still got money. You know you're walking into something. And when you total all this up, you actually end up with something a little higher and maybe about the same as starting a business from complete scratch. Because you got to remember, you're putting a significant amount of cost on the line. Whereas if you start a business, you have a lot of uncertainty and complexity, but what's at risk, right? You could say, well, I quit my job and I don't have that income anymore, right? Opportunity loss. Well, you're doing the same thing here with buying a business, and you got to jump in full-time here. Typically with starting a business from scratch, you could potentially hang on to a job and still do both at the same time. So your opportunity cost is negated. Both of these seem to be pretty risky. So what is number 3? That's where we get to what's called franchising. So before I break it down, what is franchising in its real form? It is just simply copying and pasting a business that someone else built. Or another way to put it, it's like a business in a box that you open up and you have a whole set of instructions, you build it, and you have help to do it. So let's dive in on it. When it comes to franchising, you're looking at a cost that actually does not have to be significant. If you want to go for some massive multi-six-figure franchise startup, you absolutely can. But the vast majority of franchises, especially the one that we do that helps people transition as a first-time business owner, it lands at this too compared to all these other options. Yes, it is a bit more of an investment than starting from complete scratch, but it's not excessive. It's not going to cost you all kinds of money to get into business. To understand the cost of a franchise, the good news is they have to disclose you all the details they possibly can. Unlike with the uncertainty associated with starting or buying a business, you actually know what you're walking into. And the way that the cost generally breaks down is you have what's called the franchise fee, and then you have what's called your startup costs. Your franchise fee is what makes you official, and your startup costs are what gets you off the ground. And what's good news about a franchise like this is they spell all of that out for you. And when it comes to franchises like ours, you don't need multiple six figures to build a business. You can get going without risking all your money. All right, now let's dive into complexity. When it comes to how complicated is a business, the job of a franchise is to take that complexity completely away, at least as much as possible. Now, you are still the owner of that business. It is your company. So there are decisions that you need to make. There are some things that you can choose to do and have freedoms with within your business. So the complexity when it comes to this is a 2, because it's not a lot that you have to figure out. Essentially, with that investment, you're gaining 10 years of savings of your life so that you can be told exactly what works, what doesn't work, what to avoid, the exact steps to do, and to follow that path. That way you can smoothly transition into business ownership. The only time this complexity goes up is, let's use an example of if you decided to invest in a McDonald's franchise. Well, then you decide, oh, well, I'm going to build a skating rink right beside my McDonald's franchise. Well, that gets a little bit complicated. And so if you're a first-time business owner without experience, it's a bad idea to make things more complex. What I like to say is you got to drink Kool-Aid before you can become a connoisseur. You got to start with the simple stuff, the stuff that you can grow up on and mature on, and then move to the complex, sophisticated, nuanced type drink. And what a franchise does, it gives you the opportunity to become a business owner without all of the immense amount of complexity, which then leads to uncertainty. Yes, there is an element of you have to make this thing work. You could have a box for an IKEA bed shipped to your house, but you got to still put it together, right? You can have instructions, you can talk with support on the phone, someone can come out and help you, but you still have to be the one to put it together. So there is an element of uncertainty when it comes to following the franchise path to becoming a business owner for the first time. But when you look at the statistics of the success rate of franchises versus the success rate of all the other options, they win far more often. And if I can speak from experience, having been a franchisee myself and now being a franchisor, ultimately it comes down to this. You create your own certainty. Now, how much uncertainty you need to overcome varies. But typically with a franchise, especially like ours, we want to take someone who's going to become a business owner no matter what it takes, and we just want to throw rocket boosters on them and send them on their way. And it's our job to show them the path, the picture, everything they need to know to remove as much uncertainty as we possibly can so that they can focus on winning for themselves and for their family. So whenever I sat down and did this for myself, looking at business opportunities and ways to get into business. And actually, again, I've done all 3 of these throughout my business ownership career. Franchising has been the easiest one. Now, that also doesn't mean because it's easy that you shouldn't do it either. Just because something's hard doesn't mean you should do it either. It's much easier to row a boat with the current than against it. And so whenever I was thinking through the best ways to get into business for myself, this is how it worked out. And now when we compare these options, you can see how they stack up. Now, does this mean that you should just run straight into it and invest in the first franchise that you find? No, absolutely not. There are reasons to start a business from scratch. There are reasons to buy an existing business. Usually those kind of things come into play whenever you are able to reduce the complexity, reduce the uncertainty, and put the odds in your favor. But if you're a first-time business owner, you have a family, or if you're wanting to become a first-time business owner and your family's on the line, you got a career, you don't want to go back to it, right? That'd be embarrassing. Or you lose your momentum in that corporation. You don't want to make that happen, right? You want to make sure when you make the transition, you make it steadily. You make it firm. That is what franchises generally are for. They're there for first-time business owners. If you want to know what it looks like to become a full-on business owner yourself using a franchise brand like ours, which is called the Assett franchise, check out the links down below. Thanks so much for watching again. My name is Matt. I was once in your shoes, and I make these videos to help you follow the same track that I did, and you can copy the same exact business that I own into your own market. I do this because I want to be a blessing to your life and your family. I hope you found this video helpful. Please share it with somebody who you know might be wanting to also become a business owner themselves. And until next time, stay blessed.